Hello Newborn Nation, Newbornkilik here, welcoming you back to another awesome Zelda Theory. Now today's theory is going to be a little bit different as it's more so an open forum for discussion about who Link's mother is. But with that in mind, today we will be talking about the potential identity of Link's mother, the fate of Link's father, the very dark reason for the undead rising from the grave in Hyrule Field, and how the Happy Mask Salesman may very well be responsible for the death of Link's mother and spurring along the entirety of Ocarina of Time. But before we get into any of that, we need to review what we know about the area of Hyrule and of Link's mother. First off, we all know that the undead spawn in Hyrule Field. This is apparently common by the time of Ocarina of Time, meaning that it probably happened sometime during the Civil War. Bear in mind that was, years ago during the events of Ocarina of Time. Bear in mind that a lot of people probably died in Hyrule Field. It's kind of the middle ground between all of the, the different tribes and the different villages, so it makes sense that most of the fighting would take place on Hyrule Field. Basically leading Hyrule Field to be some sort of mass grave, which is really eerie to think about. But it also does lead some sort of validity to our beginning theory here, which could potentially mean that all of those undead are actually soldiers from the Hyrulean Civil War. It's actually kind of interesting, but a very popular theory about Link's father is that he was a soldier in the Hyrulean Civil War, which means maybe he's one of those undead. We actually have some information about Link's mother as told by the Deku Tree Sprout, who says, "One day, to escape from the fires of the war, a Hylian mother and her baby boy entered this forbidden forest." Remember how they say fires of war? That'll be important later. The mother was gravely injured. Her only choice was to entrust the child to the Deku Tree, the guardian spirit of the forest. So from this we can tell that Link's mother was injured fleeing from something, presumably the war or maybe an invasion on home turf, cough cough. And we can tell by Link's age that this is very near the end of the Hyrulean Civil War, meaning that the undead may have actually been present at that time. So, who was she injured by? It could have been, maybe she was injured by a battle that was going on that she decided to run through or near for whatever reason. It could have been that, maybe she was injured by the undead that were plaguing the area at the moment. But my main problem with this piece of lore is why in the world was Link's mother close to the Kokiri Forest in the first place? Well, that's what we are here to answer. So now that we've gotten all of that background information out of the way, let's get into the theories that we've been working on. And I gotta say, the last one is really dark. So the first Zelda theory that we have is that Link's mother was a royal messenger. Now, this one's very circumstantial and kind of out there, but bear with me on this one. In the manga, which I know is not a very credible source, but for the sake of some fun theory crafting, let's go along with it for now. Link's mother is actually shown escaping on a horse, implying that they were doing pretty well, or at least well enough, to own or have access to a horse. Bear in mind that not even the postman has access to a horse, someone that you would kind of assume is working for the king directly. So the general premise behind this theory is that by the end of the war they were probably starting to make some allies. Assuming that the Zora were allies at the time, that would make sense as to why she was by the Kokiri Forest. I mean, it could have been so easy as negotiations broke down and maybe, don't kill the messenger, but they decided to kill the messenger anyway, and she escaped, or maybe she was wrongfully attacked, in an ambush, maybe they kind of mistook her for somebody else. I mean, if she was attacked, the horse probably would have gotten scared away, helping us to understand why she wouldn't just go back to Castletown to treat her wounds. And if the Zora had something to cover up, maybe they just tried to cover it up. The implications of this are kind of weak, but basically limitless. Now for the next theory, we have that Link's mother worked for the mask shop. Now this is a very short and sweet theory, and basically it says that Link's mother was tasked with selling a mask to a buyer near or in the Kokiri Forest. This would kind of explain why she was actually near the forest in the first place, a place she really didn't have any business being in. As we discussed earlier, she could have been attacked by undead or maybe caught up in a small skirmish due to the war. Because of that, she would have left Link with the Kokiri, because, what are the odds of a wounded mother being able to get back to Castletown through something that she couldn't get through in perfect condition? So the implications of this theory would imply that maybe the Happy Mask Salesman just really didn't care about his employees. I mean, the Happy Mask salesman would have known that there was undead running rampant at this point, and still he would send out one of his employees to go and deliver a mask for money. Bear in mind, this isn't a one-time thing. The Happy Mask salesman actually has a history of strangling children for one, which is a bit out there, but also taking possession of things that could easily endanger a lot of people. Think Majora's Mask from, well, Majora's Mask. Why would you have something like that knowing that it's so dangerous? He's always seemed a little bit off to me anyway. But talking about the Happy Mask salesman, our next theory actually has to do with his shop. And this is the one that I really tend to like out of all three of these. And that is that Link may have been born into a merchant family, and Link's father was actually killed defending his home. I know that sounds very crazy, but for starters we have the horse manga idea from earlier, but even disregarding anything from the manga, so let's assume that they don't have a horse. Fine. Take note that the Happy Mask shop is not open at the beginning of Ocarina of Time, implying there's some kind of long-term vacancy there. It could be that this building needed to be rebuilt before it could be used once again. The implication here being that this was actually Link's family's shop. Now, as far as what they were actually selling is anybody's guess. We actually have some pretty decent evidence to support the theory that Link may have been born into a merchant family, the first of which being Hyrule Castle Town's economy seems to be in kind of a weird spot. Note all of the people pushing and shoving to get something from these two stalls. We don't really know what's going on. So it is assumed that all of these people have money to buy whatever this shopkeep is selling, and that idea is actually reinforced when you talk to the beggar who says, please, please sell me something, please see, implying that she has money and she does pay up, so she has money but the supply is super low, meaning that there's some kind of gap in the economy. Now we can see potion shops and game places that are doing pretty well, but they're not pushing and shoving to get them. So it's kind of implied that these two stalls are selling a necessity of some kind, probably food. And if this is a food stall, and everyone's pushing and shoving, and they're not waiting orderly in line, which, one, rude, but this implies that there's some kind of shortage of a necessary resource in Hyrule Castletown. Again, probably food or water. A gap that may have been filled years ago by who else but Link's parents. So basically, with all this economy talk, what we find out is that there's really no reason for a shop to just shut down. Ah yes, but I promised this last theory would be dark, didn't I? And I will deliver on that, trust me. So the next part of this theory is that Link's mother actually fled from Hyrule Town to the fortress in the Kokiri Forest after an invasion on Hyrule Town. Remember, she fled from the fires of war, kind of implying that maybe her house or shop was on fire. Literally fleeing from the fires of war. And for anyone confused as to what I mean when I say the fortress in Kokiri Forest, I actually covered that in my top 10 Zelda theories that everybody should know, which I would recommend you check out if you'd like information on that. But basically, this theory states that the Forest Temple is actually a stronghold from the Hyrulean Civil War. And real quick, I want to give a shout out to one of my patrons, George Kasner, who actually made the connection between Link's mother potentially fleeing to the Kokiri Forest and the stronghold that may have been there. But, well, Newbornkilik, let's back up for a second. Who even said that there was an invasion on Castletown to begin with? Well, truth be told, there's really not a lot of evidence to support any sort of invasion on the Castletown. There is one guard inside of, well, the potted room, the room with all the pots in Ocarina of Time when you're child Link, who says that things are really boring, implying that he may have had a taste of action at some point. Being a guard and not a soldier, the action must have happened on home turf. And if this were true, then it wouldn't be that far-fetched to assume that Link's father may have been killed, buying his family just enough time to escape Hyrule Castle Town. At this point, the mother may have been wounded during the invasion, or by the undead, making her way to the only safe place that she knows, the fortress in the Lost Woods. I mean, that would give us a reason as to why she went there of all places. If the town was being invaded, there's no way she would have been able to get any sort of help there with her wounds, dooming Link's mother to death. Thanks to everyone who made it all the way to the end of the video, and thank you for watching. I greatly appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video, I would encourage you to check out some of my other Zelda theories, or if you're feeling more like a free-form kind of video, then maybe you should check out my Legend of Zelda Wind Waker Chaos Edition playthrough. Real quick, I want to give a shout out to my patrons, George Kasner III, Mark Comer, Emai, and a brand new guy, Milanus. I believe he did some stuff on Newgrounds, old school Newgrounds, so definitely if you are interested in sprite animation, check out Milanus. And if you would like to join them in supporting Newbornkilik, I would greatly appreciate it. Sponsors like this are definitely going to be the ones that make all of this possible in the future. So again, if you're interested in joining, I will leave a link in the description, or hopefully it will be on screen sometime soon. Anyway, I'm Newbornkilik, and I will see you in the next one. I'm out.